Hello there. Let's look at quantum numbers today. To do that, let's look at here the Bohr model. We have the each and every orbit in 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, right? When you go out, they are closer and closer. Towards the nucleus, they are smaller and smaller, right? That's what the Bohr model. Then Bohr model also 288. We'll look at that, how does it change. But in order to understand this one, the quantum, the principal quantum number is, I call the shell. This is principal energy level or principal quantum number. And it goes from 1 to infinite levels actually. But it's better if you call it a shell, energy shell, or kind of orbit, not the perfect term. It's an orbit, right? And also it gives you the idea of the size of the atom. Now, knowing that, and we're going to convert the Bohr model into the quantized atom, so you can understand everything about the quantum numbers. So typically we know the level, n level, the principal quantum number, 1, 2, 3, up to 7, but it can go up to infinite though, right? And the maximum number of electrons can hold in one energy level is 2 times n to the power. We know the first shell has 2 electrons, second one is 8, third one is 8, and so on, right? But in this case, it's slightly different because 2 to the n to the squared. So 2 to the 1 squared, 2 to the 2 squared, 2 to the 3 squared, 2 to the 4 squared. So it ends up with 2, 8, 18, and 32, right? But only fancy thing, the fancy thing we did today is the third shell has 18, not 8, because there is D. Okay. Now, from the principal energy level, we go to the sub level. That is called the subshell, because the previous one is shell. This is subshell. This is also called the azimuthal quantum number. That's the official name. All right, so you can call subshell or azimuthal quantum number, but this value is more important. That is L, the symbol L, that's coming from n minus 1 in red. I'm going to start with the principal or the shell numbers first. Principal energy level 1, 2, 3, 4, simple n. And then L is n minus 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0, that is called S. And n minus 1, 2 minus 1 is 1, that's called P. And 3 minus 1 is 2, that's called D. And 4 minus 1 is 3, that's called F. They have names actually: sharp, principal, diffused, and fundamental. These are based on their mathematical and spectral studies. Don't worry about that. Now, S has a solid ball for 1s, but 2s is a ball within the ball, right? That's how you want to think about the shape, because actually the P is actually dumbbell, D is a double dumbbell, and F is actually a bunch of flower petals, so it's complex. So just leave it that, right? Now the other thing you have to understand: S is 0, P is 1, D is 2, 3 is F. So that's what the numbers for L, that's what the letters. There's another analogy you can think. S is a single house, single story, P is 2-story building, D is 3-story building, and F is 4-story building. That's another way to think. Now also think from energy from nucleus to the way up, N1 to N4, it's energy going up. When you fill the electrons, you fill it based on the Aufbau. Aufbau is actually construction, the building up, the German meaning. Okay. Now that's how the electrons are filled from level N1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 4. Now, the take home here is L levels, Ls are 0, 1, 2, 3, and their symbols are SPDF, right? So the L is the subshell, the sub energy level. Now the next one is called the magnetic quantum number. Simply, it's the orientation of the electron. Basically, it explains where the electron actually most of the time resides. This is given by the symbol plus or minus L. We already know what's the L. L is the subshell, right? That also is SPDF, okay? All right. Now here, it basically shows where the electron is, and we're going to find out the location actually, right? And because we talked about the apartments or buildings, building with 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories, and so on, right? Okay, so let's look at, if we know the L's, the subshells are 0, 1, 2, 3, and we can go on, but that's good enough. And then SPDF, corresponding symbols, right? And the subshells, right? Now, the magnetic quantum number is plus or minus L. 0 plus or minus is still 0. It's just a little box. And 1 plus or minus is minus 1, 0, plus 1. This has actually 3 boxes. Now, plus or minus 2 is minus 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2. So this has 5 boxes. Now, plus or minus 3, the F is actually minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. This has 7 boxes. Now, this will make more sense when we go further, right? The electrons filling here, in one area, you can have 2 electrons, or one orbital, you can have 2 electrons. So that's why S gets 2, P gets 6, D gets 10, and F gets 14. If there is an imaginary G, that will get 9. 9 means 18 electrons. Okay, so that is if you needed, what's the maximum number of electrons. Okay, so from there, we're going to jump to the spin quantum number, which is the plus or minus half. It's called the MS. This is actually simply, it's explaining the angular momentum of the solid ball, the electron. And if it is spinning clockwise, you can say plus half or half fishhook within that orbit. And the other one is minus half or half fishhook downward, right? So it's better to show this way. If it is 2p 4 electrons, you're going to show this way. And if it is 3s2, you're going to show that way. That basically shows each pair is plus half and a minus half there. That's what the spin. Let's look at the summary of all the quantum numbers. That is N shell, L subshell, ML magnetic quantum number. And then also we look at the total number of electrons. So the shell, the principal quantum number goes 1, 2, 3, 4 upward, right? And then the sub level goes from 0 is 1s, right? And then the 2s 2p, 3s 3p 3d, 4s 4p 4d 4f. That's all of the sub levels within the each principal energy level. And also we did the ml, right? For I'm drawing only for 1. So S is 1 kg, P is 3 kgs, D is 5 kgs, F is 7 kgs. And that's why you get the maximum number of electrons for ml, or for the orbit. S gets 2, P gets 6, D gets 10, F gets 14, right? Now, we can also look at the total number of electrons. So the S level, 2 to the 1 squared is 2. And the second level, 2 to the 2 squared is 8. And that 8 actually coming from S2 and P6, right? And then the 2 to the 3 squared is 18. That comes from D10, P6, and S2, right? And the fourth level has 2 to the 4 squared, which is 32. That comes from F14, D10, P6, and S8. Now there's magic you learned before. The third level had only 2, 8, 8. That's not true.